We're going to spend some time during this Wednesday Wisdom video working through Romans chapter 12, verse 2. But before we dig into the text itself, there's one word that is kind of very foundational to this text that we need to work through a little bit here first, and that's the word formation. It's not a word that we pay much attention to in our lives today, if I'm quite honest. But essentially, whether we realize it or not, you and I are actually constantly being formed. Not everything forms us, but we are very selective and choose what we want to be formed by. But basically, we can be formed by anything and everything. We can be formed by information we're given, our experiences, our surroundings, the people we're with, things we watch. But I think what Paul is really trying to focus on here is our thought life. And as I've thought about this more and more, and even spent some time in this passage and other scriptures, our thought life is really a gateway to a whole bunch of things, including who we become and our behaviors. And so, simply put, the things that we think about, that we meditate on, so to speak, these things we end up believing to be true, these stories or whatever, they form us. And I think the best example I can give you, although it's probably a little silly, but I think it gets the point across. But the best example I can give you is the story of Santa Claus. So if you believed or were to believe in the story of Santa Claus, then you would live your life, you would think about things a lot, and you would end up living your life a certain way. And so what I mean by that is that in the story of Santa Claus, he's got a naughty and a nice list, and those who are on the nice list, he brings presents to on Christmas Day, and he loves cookies and milk. And so essentially, if you believed these things and you thought about these things and spent time on them, you would be conscious to behave in a certain way throughout the 364 days of the year leading up to Christmas Day, with an expectation that you would receive something on Christmas Day. You would probably leave milk and cookies in your home because he's going to visit you Christmas Day morning, Christmas Eve night, to pick up those milk and cookies and to deliver you some gifts. And so I realize, again, it's probably a little humorous, but I think you get the picture that basically the things that we allow to form us are things that we actually believe. And our thought life plays a huge part in that. And so Paul's going to help us work through the idea, that idea of the word formation here in our Romans 12 passage. And just simply, the word formation means that we're becoming something, or in the case of Christianity, we're becoming like someone. And so this passage for today is Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Paul writes, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." So there are two words here that come from our word formation. And that first word is the word conformed. Now, Paul gives us a very direct command here that he wants to drive home with us. He says, do not be conformed to this world. Now, conformed in this case means or implies that we do what is natural. That if we're going to conform to something, we're just going to give in to it. So he tells us, don't do that. But he doesn't leave us hanging there. He puts a but in there. I'm not going to go Jason's route with this one for today, but he puts a but in there for us. And he tells us that we should do something different, that we should be transformed. And transform just simply means to go against what is naturally happening. And he tells us how. He says, by the renewing of our mind. So he's telling us that we should change the things that we think about, and they will change us, aka the renewal of our minds. What Paul is getting at here is that we can either keep on thinking about the things of this world, or we can think about something different. He's talking about changing what we think about. So if we shift our focus and begin to think about the things that Jesus would think about and obey the things that he taught, because we trust that he loves us and knows what's best for us. The outcome is that we become more like him. We become transformed. He's not saying that we shouldn't participate in the things of this world. Now, in some cases, that may be true where we shouldn't, but he's telling us not to be formed by them. So I have a question for you, and be careful with this question. Watch your heart, because your heart, if you answer this in a certain way, will have a tendency to want to go to guilt and shame and condemnation, and that's not where Jesus wants to lead you, but he does want to lead you down a path of honesty. So think about this question honestly for a minute. What do you do with the things that you're given in Christian gatherings? What do you do with the Wednesday Wisdom, the information that you receive in these Wednesday Wisdom videos? So, for example, last week, Jason shared with us what the marks of a Christian should look like, and how as Christians we should live together in peace, and how we should live with those in the outside world that don't believe what we believe. What did you do with that video? Not meaning like, did you delete it? Did you watch it? No, I mean, what Jason taught and what he drew from the text that in that video, what did you do with it? Because one big reason why IndyCar Ministry exists is to provide spaces and opportunities where your mind, my mind, our minds can begin or even continue to be renewed for the sake of transformation. Spaces where we are given information for the purpose of transformation. Did you catch that? These Wednesday Wisdom videos, the race day devotionals, the winter circles, all of these spaces and venues and opportunities that we provide are for the purpose of transformation. We give you information in those circles for the purpose of transformation. So it's not just about attending the gatherings or watching the videos and receiving the information. Well, yes, that's important, and you should do that, but it's about what you do with that information that you're receiving. So let me close with this. Brennan Manning once said that through the many years that he spent in a little chapel in the mountains of Pennsylvania, through the thousands of hours of prayer, meditation, silence, and solitude over those years, that he was utterly convinced that on Judgment Day, the Lord Jesus is going to ask each one of us one question. Did you believe that I loved you, that I desired you, that I waited for you day after day, and that I longed to be with you? So if you begin to, or as you continue to believe or trust in Jesus and the true story of what he's done, is doing, and will do with you and for you in the days to come, you'll be transformed into doing the will of the Father, just like he did, things that are good, acceptable, and perfect. So my prayer for you today is that you would let these Wednesday Wisdom videos and let these other spaces that IndyCar Ministry provides transform you into becoming more like Christ because of his love for you. Thanks for joining me for this Race to Rome Wednesday Wisdom.